All right, let's talk about the future of work and AI. This is probably one of the biggest questions on everyone's mind right now. What's going to happen to our jobs? So let's just dive right in. So here it is, the million-dollar question. Will AI take your job or actually make it better? I mean, this is the one that really hits home for all of us, right? It's personal, it's happening now, and that's exactly what we're going to unpack. Are we looking at a total revolution in how we work, or are we heading for a crisis? And let's get one thing straight. This is not science fiction anymore, not by a long shot. We're talking about something that is reshaping our world right now. It's already in the mix for everything from creative stuff like writing movies and making art, all the way to running warehouses and even helping doctors make diagnoses. The change is happening as we speak. Okay, so to really get a handle on where we're going, we've got to start with what's happening today. Let's look at the jobs that are on the front line, the ones feeling the heat from this AI wave. And what's kind of wild is just how many different kinds of jobs are being touched by this. We used to think it was all about routine, manual stuff. And sure, things like data entry and call centers are definitely on that list, but it's not stopping there. We're talking about white-collar knowledge work now. Think paralegals sifting through documents or financial analysts crunching numbers. And get this, even creative jobs like copywriting and basic design are seeing AI step in a big way. Yeah, and we're not talking about a small ripple here. This is a potential tidal wave. I mean, major studies from big names like McKinsey and PwC, they're projecting that up to 30% of all jobs could be automated by 2030. That is a huge chunk of the entire global workforce, all facing a massive change in a really short time. But, okay, it's not all doom and gloom, not at all, because while some jobs are getting disrupted, there's a whole new workforce emerging on the other side, a new AI workforce with a completely new set of skills. So for every job that changes, it seems like a new one is popping up. You've got the obvious ones, right? The AI-specific roles, like engineers and data ethicists. And then you have these really cool new jobs like prompt designers, people who are basically experts at talking to AI to get the best results. But here's the other really interesting trend. It's putting a huge premium on skills that are uniquely human. Things like empathy, deep creative thinking, complex problem solving, those are becoming more valuable than ever. And that's why we're seeing growth in fields like education, psychology, and social work. All right, so this whole thing is much bigger than just which jobs are in and which are out. We're talking about a fundamental shakeup of our entire society, of our economy. One of the biggest things economists are worried about is something called job polarization. Think of it like this. AI is creating a ton of demand for high-skilled jobs at the very top, like those AI engineers we mentioned. It's also creating some low-skill service jobs at the bottom. But that whole middle section, the administrative roles, the backbone of so many companies, that's getting squeezed. It's getting hollowed out. And that creates what they're calling the Great Divide, which puts a ton of pressure on a huge number of people. And here's the real paradox, the tricky part. AI is expected to unleash this massive wave of productivity, adding trillions of dollars to the global economy. But, and this is a big but, where does all that new money go? The worry is that it'll flow to a pretty small group of people, making inequality even worse. This also creates a whole new global power dynamic. The countries that figure this out first could totally dominate, while developing nations that depend on labor that can now be automated, well, they could get left even further behind. So as you can imagine, this is forcing people to think way outside the box for solutions. And one of the big ideas being thrown around is the robot tax. The concept is actually pretty straightforward. If a company replaces a person with an AI or a robot and saves a bunch of money, the government would tax some of those savings. And that tax money would then be used to fund things like job retraining for the very people who are displaced. And then there's the whole legal mess. I mean, our laws were written for a completely different world. So you've got these huge, thorny questions, like if a hiring AI is biased, who's liable? The company, the programmer? What about worker privacy when AI can monitor every single keystroke? How do we protect people from that? Or what about a gig worker whose manager is just an algorithm? What are their rights? These aren't hypothetical anymore. Lawmakers are wrestling with this stuff as we speak. So what's the answer? How do we as a society deal with all this? Right now, the conversation really boils down to two big ideas. On one hand, you have the safety net approach, things like universal basic income, or UBI, designed to give people a financial floor. On the other hand, you have the adaptation approach, which is all about mass reskilling and lifelong learning. But that brings its own challenges, right? Like, what's the mental health cost of having to constantly reinvent your career? And all of this brings us to what might be the single most important point of all. The future. Here, it's not written yet. It's not set in stone. What happens next, the outcome of this whole revolution, it really comes down to the choices we all make, starting right now. You can kind of picture two very different roads ahead. There's the optimistic path, where AI becomes this amazing tool that boosts our own intelligence. It takes over the boring, tedious stuff, leading to shorter work weeks and maybe even a burst of human creativity. But then there's the pessimistic path. That's the one that leads to mass unemployment, social unrest, and a society that's more divided than ever because AI has replaced so many human workers. And at the end of the day, we just have to remember this one thing. The technology itself doesn't decide our future. We do. People do. The kind of world we end up with is going to be a direct result of the policies we create, the ethical rules we agree on, and the social choices we make about how we want to live with these incredibly powerful new tools. So yeah, solving this isn't just a tech problem. It's not about writing better code or building faster chips. It's a human problem. It's a political one. It's going to take smart leadership, a lot of public debate, and a real shared vision for what kind of society we actually want to live in. This is just as much about our values as it is about our tech. And that brings us full circle, right back to where we started. Now that you've seen the potential upsides and the very real risks, I want to know what you think. Is AI going to end up creating more jobs than it destroys, or the other way around? This conversation is just getting started, and honestly, your opinion really matters in shaping what comes next.